Pagliuco Enterprises presents Adventures in Mercantilism. Okay, this is Mr. Pagliuco speaking on behalf of American history, and today our topic is mercantilism. The first thing we want to know about mercantilism is how to pronounce this word. So some people are going to say mercantilism, and other people are going to say mercantilism. I don't actually know the answer to that question. I've always said and been taught, I believe, mercantilism. But I like the sound of mercantilism. So whatever you like is best. In any case, this was an economic policy that was commonly used in Europe in the 17th century, and it does not have the same foundation as capitalism, which is a different economic system. So to describe mercantilism, we will come up with a hypothetical situation here, which we'll call the mother country, and it's going to be mother country triangle. And the basis of mercantilism is that you want as little, you do not want gold or essentially money, but back then it was all backed by gold. You do not want gold leaving the kingdom. This is bad. And that makes sense. It's understandable how they came up with this solution or this system, because when I want to become rich in my household, I would say, I want to save money. So I want lots of gold coming in, but not a lot going out. And so that is not the basis of capitalism, and we'll explain that in a second. So with that in mind, Country Triangle is going to try to produce everything by itself. So this little sector is going to be, they're going to produce apples. And this little sector, they're going to produce pears. And this little sector here, they're going to produce grass seed. And this little sector, they're going to produce dishes. And the idea is that the whole country ultimately would be producing all of these items so that you were never buying these items from other countries. You were always buying them from your own country, and the money was staying within the kingdom. And so, of course, there were some times, because this is in the north, it was very cold, and they weren't very good at producing apples, let's say. So then the idea is that they'll go and they'll establish colonies. And this apple thing is out now. They're not going to produce apples here. They stink at producing apples. It's freezing up here, and the growing season is short, and the soil's not right to grow apples. So we're going to produce this colony, and they're going to produce apples in barrels from the apple trees. Okay, and so the raw materials come in, and the finished goods go out. And so this one mother country here is going to have lots of these colonies all around probably the world, and they're all going to produce different things for the mother country. And the raw materials all go in, and the finished goods all go out. And it's like this nice self-confined system, and gradually this place becomes richer and richer. And then these colonies, life is pretty good for them because they have a market for their raw materials and they get the finished goods. However, that is also limiting because they may not be getting the best price because they're not shopping it around to all these different countries. And so in theory, mercantilism limits the economy of the whole. But it's a nice closed system and it makes sense. So now, And this was really not put into practice very much in the 1600s and most of the 1700s because the colonies were too small and insignificant. And yes, they did have their tobacco and their rice and, sugar and so forth. But it was really after the French and Indian War that this mercantilistic policy started to really be implemented in. And England was strong enough and powerful enough to start to be able to enforce mercantile policy. However, the different version, a different economic policy is um, capitalism. And let's see if I can get a new slide up here. This, try this one. No, that's not what I was looking for. Oh, and let's go with this guy. All right, now capitalism, on the other hand, if here's that same country triangle, and capitalism says that the invisible hand of economics, the invisible hand is an important concept here. The invisible hand of economics will dictate what country triangle produces. And it just so happens that country triangle has the best soil and the best growing season and the best knowledge and know-how and tradition to produce beef. And so the whole of country triangle is now going to be producing beef. And they produce beef naturally, practically, that is higher in quality. It's the most, they produce the most of it, so quantity. They naturally produce it the fastest and in the smartest ways. They are really good beef producers. And they've got like the gene pool thing going on, blah, blah, blah. And so this country triangle is just really good at beef. And so in the end, it says that they should dedicate their whole existence because the invisible hand of what they're naturally good at. They're naturally the smartest at it. They have the traditions. They have the environment for it. They should be producing beef. And so then over here, country rectangle, they naturally produce apples really well. And then we have another country circle, and they produce dishes. Now, instead of the idea that country triangle has to produce apples and dishes all in the same triangle, this is the idea that you do what's best. And who's best at determining what they produce? The people. The people know what they produce the best at. And they naturally, the invisible hand of desire, will lead them to produce what they're naturally good at. So for me, I'm 5 feet 8 inches tall. I'm not going to naturally be a basketball player. That doesn't make any sense. I've never had any proclivity towards playing basketball in my life. However, other sports where height is not such a matter, the invisible hand tells me to play those other sports. Okay, and it has to do with obviously positions as well. If I were to play basketball, I would obviously try to be a point guard and not a center, for instance. The invisible hand is telling me to try to be a point guard, not a center. And the idea here is so that you produce what is best and you sell this out, and you sell it high because you're the best at it and you make your profit. And then apples will be cheapest because country rectangle is very good at producing apples. So you get cheap apples in return. Back. Now, naturally, some of these items are better than others. I mean, maybe apples sell for more than beef. Maybe you can make apple crisp out of the apples. They create apple crisp, and then they create apple pie and apple sauce and apple syrup. And I don't know, that's pretty good diversity for apples. So the stuffed apples. Okay, and so you buy these cheap and you sell your beef high, and that's where you get. The idea is competition drives the prices down for everybody, and this ends up being the most efficient way to to run an economy. And capitalism was Adam Smith. Whoops. Adam Smith is considered the father of capitalism, and he was a Scot. And he wrote a book called The Wealth of Nations, or The Wealth, maybe not A Wealth, but The Wealth of Nations. And he wrote about this invisible hand, and he called the principle, a famous principle called laissez-faire. And this means hands off. Hands off, huh? And what that means is, hey, government, keep your hands off the economy. Don't try to make us produce apples where we should be producing beef. Don't try to make us produce wheat where we should be producing beef. But up here, don't try to make us produce beef when what we really produce well is cabinets. Whoops, cabinets. So we produce cabinets the best here. The invisible hand will tell us what we produce best in our area with our wisdom and what our desires are. We don't need government to. Government, keep your hands off the economy and let us do our thing. And this is an easy date to remember. It was written in 1776. And so I like to think, even though it's probably not true, that the United States of America had its Declaration of Independence in 1776 and began its experiment with capitalism in 1776 as well. All right, I hope that helps clarify things a bit. And I'll see you next time.